Good afternoon, all. Vani sir, is there any issue in my voice?
Hello. Okay. Good afternoon, all. I specially welcome today's expert, Dr. S.R. Patil, sir, and all participants in this fourth session of the 1 week online faculty development program on research methodology. Before starting session, first I will introduce today's expert for this session, Dr. S.R. Patil, sir. He has completed his B in mechanical engineering, PG in design engineering from Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He has completed his PhD in VTU Belgavi. Currently, he is working as assistant professor in mechanical engineering department of Rajaram Bapu Institute of Technology, Rajaram Nagar, Islampur. He has 22 years teaching experience. During his experience, he have taught graduate and postgraduate courses also, and he has filed two patents. Out of these, one patent is granted. The patent name is automatic bell vending machine. He has published 12 research journals in SCI Scopus and UGC Care journals. He has also published 20 research publications in national and international conferences. He has handled 10 research projects, and he has organized a 6 FDP also. So we have got his valuable time for today's session. And today's topic for this session is research design and planning. So I request Dr. S.R. Patil sir to start his session.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for the nice introduction. Let me share my screen first of all for this session. I hope my screen is visible to you.
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Shall I start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so welcome you all for this session on research design and planning, and this 1 week online faculty development program on research methodology, um, organized by this Padma Bhushan Vasantha Patil Institute of Technology, Gurugram. Um in these 2 hours, we are going to discuss, certain methodologies over here. What exactly the research design is, research plan is, and what are the different methodologies we need to implement in order to carry out any sort of research over here. And the theoretical part we are going to discuss over here, and as well as I'm going to discuss with you two case studies over here. So, like case studies, the research which we have carried out, and we are progressing also in it. Okay, so if you look at the outline of this presentation, I'm going to talk on the introduction to the research design and planning, in which we will discuss little about key elements, importance, need of the research design or the research plan, what are the different types of the research design, and the different methods which we are implementing to carry out the research. Then a well planned research design, how it should be, what are the different steps we should follow in the well planned research design that we are going to see. What are the different characteristics of a good research plan? I mean, by implementing the good research plan, what exactly we are expecting out of it? Okay, so the characteristics of this research plan we are going to discuss. Then, as I rightly mentioned, we will discuss on the two cases, which are nothing but the examples for this research design and planning, and then we'll have the question and answer session at the end. So this is a brief outline of the work what I'm going to present over here today. Yeah. So we shall start with the research. So as you all are familiar with this one, you know very well that what is the research, right? So basic research, it helps us to generate the new ideas, the principles, and the theories. We all know this, right? So let me go through a few definitions what the various different researchers have coined about this term, that is research. The first is research is defined as the systematic investigation undertaken in order to discover the new facts and get additional information. Now here, if you'll focus on the systematic investigation, you will understand that why do you require the research design or the plan? Because whatever the process we are going to conduct over here, in order to get the answer for your research question, must have a systematic planning over there. Okay, so research design or the research plan you have to formulate first when you are going to execute the research process over there. Okay, so this is what one definition of the research. If you'll see, the other scientists also have defined it as, like Saunders, Lewis, and Thornwell in 2003 defined that research is something that people undertake in order to find out new things in a systematic way, thereby increasing their knowledge. Of course, after research, whatever the outcomes of the research are there, we are going to add something to the knowledge of that respective domain. Okay, and we can add it only when we are conducting the research in a systematic and planned way. Then only it is possible for us to get some constructive outcomes over there, and we can add something to the knowledge of that respective domain. Okay, so conducting the research in a systematic way, you can understand how it is important one, and that is why we need to plan properly the research, and we need to design the research process. Okay, yeah, so you can see over here, the research is a planned activity that is aimed at establishing the new facts and information about a particular phenomena. So whatever the phenomenon you are going to search for, okay, for that one it is applicable. Yeah. Moving ahead, the research process involves the identification of a particular problem or area of interest, translating that problem into a research problem, then collecting data, analyzing that data, and reporting the findings of the research. I mean, a research means what? When shall you start with for a research? When there is some sort of a question or doubt in your mind. Okay, you wanted to know something, then your research begins, right? So herein you are going to first of all formulate the research problem over there, what you want to find out. Means your objectives, your goal you are going to finalize, and based on that one, the objectives you are going to devise over there. Then in order to find out these things, you need to analyze some data over there. So for that you need to collect the data in an appropriate way, then analyze that data to understand the meaning of it, or interpret what exactly you are the answer you are trying to find out of that research question. Okay, so analyzing of that data, and then whatever the findings you have got out of it, I mean, after analyzing the data, whatever the findings you have got, you need to prepare the report of the same. Okay, so this is what the entire process you are going to carry out under research, right? So in a sequence and in a systematic way, carrying out all these activities in the research is expected, and this is nothing but simply a research design. Okay, so as we have as I discussed about briefly the introduction of this research, we'll move to the next is the research design. What is a research design? Okay, so look at this. A research design is defined as the oral plan or a structure that guides the process of conducting the research. Then it is, you can say, a critical component of the research process, and serves as a blueprint for how a study will be carried out, including the methods and techniques that will be used to collect and analyze data. As you can see here in the this sentence, the critical component is mentioned. The research design is nothing but a critical component. Yes, it is a critical component, because if you are not well planned, well designed your entire research, you have not used the appropriate data collection method, you have not implemented appropriate data analysis method, the outcomes what you are going to get through your this particular kind of research are not going to meet your objectives what you have set at the beginning. Okay, and even setting the objectives also an important task, Okay, so what exactly you wants to find out from the particular thing? I mean, you have a question in your mind and you want to find out what exactly the answer is. So what you do is inconvenience. Actually, net connection was lost. Yeah. So I'll just share the screen. I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think the first slide I have explained already, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. So we shall go with this research design. That first point, again, I have discussed about it. The second one I was talking about the critical component. Yes, of course, this entire process, conducting this entire process is a critical job, and we have to devise all the things very carefully so that we should meet the expected outcomes out of our research. Yeah. Moving ahead, this is a well-designed research study is essential for ensuring that the research objectives are met and that the results are valid and reliable. Yes, of course, these are nothing but the characteristics of the good research design. That the research design, whatever you are going to make, it should have the validity, reliability, even generalizability, and neutrality too. Okay, so these are all nothing but the characteristics of the very good research design. Okay, so this is about the research design. Moving ahead, you can see these are certain elements of the research design. Okay, so research design is a strategy for answering your research question using the empirical data, right? Or creating a research design means making the decisions about these all different elements, what I have highlighted here in this slide. Okay, so if I'll begin from the right side, you can see over here that you are going to research, you are going to design the research. Means first of all you are going to devise the research objectives. Okay, based on the research goal, you will devise a number of research objectives required and the question for the same. Okay, then the data collection methods, right? So to get that, to achieve that particular answer for the question, you need to analyze certain data, and for that you required some primary or secondary type of data. So collection of that data and what are the different methods you are going to use for it, those you need to highlight. Then for that collected data, you are going to implement some sampling. Okay, so what sort of sampling you are going to use over there? Okay, because you know that when we are considering a population, a huge number is there in it. Okay, so sample generally we are going to use to identify few out of it in order to complete our research in a limited time frame. So sampling is essential over there. So how you are going to decide the sampling? Because you have to touch every cluster or every part of the population, and therein whatever the outcome you are trying to find out should be generalized one. I mean, the sample you have chosen, but the outcome what you have got should be applicable to the rest of part of your population too. That from that point of view, your sampling is, you need to decide the sampling over there. So sampling is also very important and a critical element of the research design. Then what are the different data collection instruments you are going to use over there? How you are going to analyze your data? What are the methods you are going to select for analyzing that data in order to get the appropriate outcome? Then the time frame. Yes, this is very important thing, because when you are doing any sort of research, always there is that within the stipulated time period only you will have to complete the research, and you will have to come up with the outcomes of it. Okay, so when there is of course there is a endless research. I mean, the new this idea is there, or the new theory you are going to devise, then in that case of course more time you required. But for a certain discoveries, okay, or findings, you have to have some limitations of the time frame. So that component also you need to consider over here. What are the different resources available? Resources for the data collection, resources for the instruments what you are going to use over there, how these different resources you are going to implement in your research process rather. Okay, so those resources you are going to highlight over here. Then once you have carried out all these things and you have analyzed the data and some findings or some outcomes you have achieved over there, how you are going to present them, how you are going to make a report of it, how you are going to publish it. Okay, so there are various different ways you can go for the data presentation and the reporting. So that also you need to consider in the research design process. So these all are important elements which you need to focus in the research design process. Okay, so we are in further slides, we are going to discuss in detail about all these elements what I have highlighted in the slide of the research design. Moving ahead, what are the key elements of the research design? Yeah, look at this. These certain key elements of the research design I have highlighted. The research objectives, which should be clearly define the goals and objectives of the research study. What is the research trying to achieve or investigate should be reflected through the research objectives. Then research questions or the hypothesis, which you need to formulate the specific research questions or the hypothesis which are going to address the objectives of the study. These questions guide the entire research process, how you should follow. Then data collection methods, determining how the data will be collected, whether through surveys, experiments, observations we are going to perform, interviews we are going to conduct, archival research is there, or a combination of these methods we need to implement in order to collect the useful data for our research work. Then, as I in the previous slide explained to you that how sampling is also very important one. The sampling is another key element of this research design, wherein you have to decide on the target population and selecting the sample that represents the population. The sampling methods can vary, such as random sampling, stratified sampling, or the convenience sampling. Further, the key elements like data collection instruments are there. You are developing or selecting the tools and instruments which are needed to collect the data, such as questionnaires, surveys, or the experimental equipments. Also, you are going to use in your research process. So these all comes under this instruments. Then data analysis, defining the statistical or analytical techniques that will be used to analyze the collected data, which may involve the qualitative or the quantitative methods, depending on the research goals. In the research design, which type of data you are handling, whether it is a qualitative or a quantitative, yeah, matters a lot. And I'm going to discuss about this one in detail in further more slides. Okay. Then time frame, as I mentioned, that establishing a timeline for the research project, including when data will be collected, analyzed, and reported, you have to have that. Then ethical consideration is, this is another element, a key element of the research design. Yes, of course, when you are performing the research, you will have to follow certain ethical guidelines. Okay. Addressing the ethical issues, including obtaining informed consent from the participants. Of course, some secondary data, if you are using, proper addressing that data in your report writing, okay, is very important one. And letting them know that you are going to use this kind of maybe instruments you are going to use, maybe the written material you are going to use. Okay, so you have to inform the consent to the respective fellows. Then you are ensuring the privacy and confidentiality of the data also, and adhering to the ethical guidelines. Okay, so this is another important key element, you can say, of the research design. Then resources, you are going to identify the different resources which are needed for the research, including like funding you required for your research projects. Okay, nowadays you know very well that the central government is offering the research fundings through various different ways. Okay, so right from your small mini projects to the research projects you are performing, you can get the fundings from them. Okay, then this is one of the resource, you can say. The funding is very important for every research work. Then personal, the equipment resource, and to assess the data sources. These all are nothing but the resources you required in the research design. Then moving ahead, the data presentation and reporting. So planning how the research findings will be presented and reported, whether through written reports, presentations you are going to make, or through the other formats in the soft form, you are going to make the data available to others. Okay, so these are nothing but the key elements of the research design. So briefly, or if we'll summarize the research design, there are various research designs basically we can follow, and you can implement while conducting your research, such as experimental research design processes there, observational research design processes there, survey, case study, and longitudinal designs. So each suited to the different research questions and the objectives. So what sort of research you are carrying out, what type of the question is there in your mind, and what are the objectives you have devised, based on that one you can select one of it. Okay, so the choice of the research design depends on the nature of the research and the goals of the study too. A well-constructed research design is crucial because it helps to ensure the validity, reliability, and generalizability of the research findings. Okay, allowing researchers to draw meaningful conclusions and contribute to the body of knowledge in their field. Okay, so if a constructive research you have carried out, and a well-constructed research design you have implemented, then definitely you are going to get the reliable data over there. You could able to valid whatever the outcomes you have got over there. Okay, and also, as I said, that you have carried out the research from a particular sample, but you can implement it to the other part of the population also, means generalizability also you can achieve from your research. These all things can be achieved only when you are going to well construct your research design. Okay. Yeah. Moving ahead, why is a research design is important, or the research plan is important one. Okay, so you can say that the research plan is important and beneficial for your project for many reasons. First one is that it helps to organize your project. So a research plan it can help you to organize the different elements of your project. Within a research plan, you can predetermine who is involved in the project, then what the project steps are, and how you may document the information. Information or that result, okay, so that you gain from the project this. So a research plan can help you to organize your objectives, giving you the opportunity to create the tentative, timeline before your project is going to begin. So for this purpose it is important one, it is useful one. Moving ahead, next is the key participants will get informed. This is very important one, because this research design or the plan is going to help you to keep everyone involved, up to date about the project. So during a research project, so you may have few participants to help you, such as your friends, employees, or no external members involved in the research process. Okay, so in this case, regardless of the context of your project, maybe it is a personal or the professional one, creating a research plan is going to help out you in the way that it allows everyone to see both the scope and the steps involved within the project, and it will also act as a general timeline for the project. Okay, so that allowing everyone to understand the basic outline of the project over here. Then to define your project's purpose, this research design or the plan is useful. Okay, so creating a research plan or the research design before you begin your research can definitely help you to define the project's purpose over here. Okay, so while you may understand the purpose of the project, aligning the goals, or expectations what are there out of the this particular projects, you can explain it to each one of them. Okay, so writing a brief section within the research plan about the project's goals and your expectations can help everyone to understand it in a better manner. Okay, then this helps to eliminates the distraction. Also this, when you have devised a proper research plan or the research design, you will understand that what you need to focus. Each one of them will understand that what they need to focus. Okay, so it avoids the distractions, and that helps you to follow the timelines what you have set for completing the different activities of the research process. Okay, so in that way it helps you to eliminate the distractions of each one of them. Okay, then moving ahead, the schedules, this schedules the individual project tasks. Okay, so if you are working with others in your research process, then during your research, this plan can help you to schedule the different tasks for everyone. You can assign these tasks to all those, and you can monitor them, okay, as per the timeline, whether they gets completed or not. If they are diverting, then you can take the corrective actions, and thus you can get it completed, all these tasks within stipulated time period, so that your research will get ultimately completed in the timeline. Okay, so for this, these all important benefits, you have to go for the research design or the research plan. Yeah. Moving ahead, let me go to this. What are the different types of the research design? So when you are briefly classifying the research design, these are few types I have highlighted over here. So the first one is the exploratory research design. Okay, exploratory research design is more informal and unstructured research design. Okay. In this one, particularly this type of research design is used to explore a situation, especially when the researcher is in an unfamiliar territory. Means you know nothing, okay, and you wants to discuss something, or you wants to about that particular part or about that particular situation. Then in that case, you have to go for such exploratory research design. Okay. So most academic projects especially begins with this exploratory research. Okay. When marketers plan to venture into a new market, such as suppose someone wants to enter in India, it is advisable to employ an exploratory research design. So as we all know that about automobile industry, if you are considering, the India is having some different sort of market than the rest of world. Okay, so when automobile industry entering in India, they need to focus accordingly on the same and can go for the exploratory research design, in which they uh, they are advisable to employ they are advisable to undertake certain experienced interviews from the experts, or conducting some focus groups. Okay, so that they will collect the information about the territory, and when they will enter, they will come up with some sort of study and some sort of plan over there. Okay, so this exploratory research design uh, we are implementing in such situation. Okay, so this could mean going through the case studies, assessing published reports, secondary data on the market, undertaking experience interviews with experts, and conducting focus groups. Then exploratory design is useful in gaining background information and deciding about the future research approaches in that respective domain. The next type of the research design is nothing but a descriptive research design. This particular type of design is employed to describe the market or the respondents' characteristics. This type of research design generates the quantitative information. Okay. Quantitative information is nothing but the information which is available in terms of the numbers. Okay. So descriptive research design we are implementing for such researches wherein we are generating the quantitative information. Okay. So therefore, such design would often involve the surveys we are carrying out. Through surveys, what exactly we are going to get. The surveys are useful to measure, the descriptive numbers relating to the respondents, like age groups, their income levels, expenditure patterns, and even the attitudes. For the buying purpose or for the selling purpose, this data is useful to us. So for that purpose, generally we are carrying out this kind of research, and we are going to get the quantitative data from this particular type. Some examples of the descriptive designs of the research type are given over here. You can see that first is, how has the Delhi housing market changed over the past 20 years? So that definitely is going to give you the quantitative outcome of it. Okay, do the customers of company A prefer the product C or the product D? You are going to get the liking of the customers. So if you are going to sample over there 100 customers, you are going to understand that 70% people are liking the product C, and 30% only are liking the product D. So whose production you should increase, that you are going to understand over there. So in that way, this descriptive research design is helpful to you to get the knowledge of it. Then what are the main genetic, behavioral, and morphological differences between the Indian wild cows and the hybrid cows? So this kind of also research you can carry out, which is known as the descriptive research design. Okay. So through surveys only you are going to get the information about the same, and you can analyze it and interpret it over there. Moving ahead, the next one is the causal research design. Okay, this is known as the experimental research design, and most of our engineering projects or the engineering researches falls in this category of the causal research design. Okay, this is causal is nothing but the cause effect we are going to see for the same. Okay, so the relationship of the cause and effect we are going to focus over here. So this is going to examine the cause and effect relationship. A well-designed experiment is the best way of understanding how one variable may influence the another variable. I mean, sale of a product. We all know that in the product life cycle, in the first phase of product life cycle, that is in an introduction phase, we need to focus more on the advertisement because your product is new to the market and most of the customers are not aware of your product. So you need to make them aware about your product first, and for that advertisement is the best tool. So if you are going to focus more on that variable, definitely it will directly influence the another variable, that is what is your expected outcome, sale of the product. So if you are advertising more, then people will get aware of it and they will come to buy your product, right? So sale of your product will increase over there. So thus this well designed experiment helps us to understand that how this these variables are having the relationships. Okay, and accordingly you can control the variables in order to get the expected outcome over there. Okay, then second one, an experiment involves one or more independent variables. Okay, for example, I can consider over here a price level and the product features. Okay, what are manipulated, which are manipulated to determine how they may impact one or more dependent variable, such as customer preferences or the customer satisfaction. Okay, so price level and product features both are going to have an impact on the customer preferences or the customer satisfaction. Okay, so that also you can understand through this causal research design. Means the relationship you are going to find out that how, because of which cause, what kind of effect, whether positive or a negative effect, we are going to experience from the same, that you are going to understand through this particular research. The next experiments can be categorized as a field experiments or the lab experiments. Okay, there are basically two, under this constrained environment, that is lab, or in a field, we can conduct the experiments over here. So there are basically in these two, we can conduct them. Then experimental and quasi-experimental designs are used to test the causal relationships. So experimental and quasi-experimental, that I'm going to explain you in further more slide. Okay. So directly when we are going to design the experiments, that comes falls in the experimental design. When we have certain restrictions, we need to go for the quasi-experimental design. So that I will explain you with an example further in the further slide. Yeah, you can see here the to run a, particular true experiment, you randomly assign, suppose I'm considering over here one of the case of the psychiatry. Okay, and in that one, suppose these psychotherapists are going to handle the different patients, and how they are going for the true experiment, and when they need to go for the quasi experiment, that I'm going to discuss over here with this example. You can see, randomly you are going to assign half the patients in a mental health clinic to receive a new treatment. Okay, the other half, the control group, receives the standard course of treatment for the depression. Okay, it means you have a one standard course of treatment which you are regularly following, and another is newly devised treatment you are going to follow. So you have made two groups of 50%, right? And you are implementing both these to them. Okay, so every few months the patients fill out a sheet describing their symptoms to see if the new treatment produces significantly better or worse effects than the standard one that you are going to observe over there. However, and then you are going to understand how the new one is the good one, or it is not good with the regular standard course of a treatment, that you can drawn out the outcome from the same. However, for this is, we call it as a true experiment. Okay. However, for ethical reasons, the directors of suppose mental health clinic may not give you the permission to assign randomly these patients to the treatments. In that case, you need to go for the quasi experimental design. So when you are going to discover that few of the physiotherapists in the clinic have decided to try out the new therapy, while others who treat similar patients have chosen to stick with the normal protocol. Okay, then those respect, you are making a groupism in the physiotherapists, and accordingly you are going to implement the new treatment you have devised. Okay, so herein you can use these pre-existing groups to study the symptom progression of the patients treated with the new therapy versus those receiving the standard course of treatment. And all the groups were not randomly assigned. Here the groups are not randomly assigned because the you have chosen the psychotherapists over here, okay, to assign or to use this new treatment procedure. Okay, so these are not randomly assigned. So if you properly account for any systematic differences between them, you can be reasonably confident, and the differences you can identify from the, for the normal new treatment and the standard course of treatment over here through this quasi experiment design also. Yeah. Moving ahead, the next type of research design is a correlational research. This is a non-experimental research. This is not a causal, research design. This is a non-experimental research technique. This helps the researchers to establish a relationship between two closely connected variables. Okay, there is no assumption while evaluating a relationship between these two other variables, and statistical analysis techniques calculate the relationship between them. So this type of research requires the two different groups. Okay, so correlational study designs might have either a positive, negative, or the zero relation to. Okay, so I'll give you some examples. You will understand over here from them that what is correlational research is. As we all know that as the price of petrol increases, the fare of an auto increases too, right? So that is direct effect on the same. So this is a positive impact you can observe over here. Also transportation cost increases, right? So that is again a positive impact. So this is a positive correlation between the two these variables, petrol price and the fare of an auto. Okay, these are two variables, and in between them you will observe the positive correlation. Then as tea consumption increases, the tiredness decreases. Okay, so as you know that the tea consumption increases means you are rather you are tiredness, for to decrease your tiredness only, you are going for the tea consumptions, right? So this when it one variable is going to increase, another variable is going to decrease in that case. Okay, so you will observe over here the negative impact, right? So this is a negative correlation, we can say. Then the third example you can see over here is the tea consumption is not correlated with the height. So it is very obvious that there is no relation with the height of the tea consumption. Okay, so whether it increases or decreases, there won't be any sort of effect on the height of any person. Okay, so this is, we call it as a zero correlation between them. Then diagnostic research. In diagnostic design, the researcher is looking to evaluate, the underlying cause of the specific topic or the phenomenon. This method helps to learn more about the factors that create the troublesome situations. Okay, so this design has mainly the three parts. In the diagnostic research, you have the inception of the issue. You are going to understand first of all what is the issue, then you are going to diagnose that issue, and then you will come up with the solution for that issue. Okay, so this is simply nothing but a diagnostic research. So certainly a problem is going to arise, you are going to have an inception of it, you are going to diagnose that problem, and then you will come up with some solution to that one. Okay, so in that way the diagnostic research design you can implement. So these are different types of the research design I have discussed with you. So these research design methods refer to the systematic approaches and the techniques which are used to plan, structure, and conduct a research study. The choice of the research design method depends on the research questions, objectives, and the nature of the study. Here are some key research design methods commonly used in various fields that I am going to explain you over here. Okay, so look at these research design methods. So I shall start with the first one is a experimental method. So In the type of research design, we have discussed little about this. The causal type, research design type, is nothing but a experimental one. Okay, so that experimental method I'm going to discuss over here. So controlled experiments we are going to perform. Controlled experiments are nothing but the randomized controlled trial, we call it as a randomized controlled. You can see over here this. Just a moment. You can see over here, this is a randomized control trial, that is RCT. In controlled experiments, the researchers manipulate one or more independent variables and measure their effects on the dependent variables while controlling for confounding factors. Okay, so I have explained over here one example so that you will understood what exactly the experimental method is. A pharmaceutical company conducts a randomized controlled trial to test the efficacy of a new drug. Okay. So participants are randomly assigned to two groups, one receiving the new drug and the other a placebo. The company measures the health outcomes of both the groups over a specific period. Okay. And from based on the data what they have observed or what they have collected out of it through the observation, they will understand the efficacy, or you can say whether the new drug is going to serve the purpose, I mean is going to meet the expected outcomes over there or not. Okay, so whether the new drug is more effective than the routine or the regular drug what you are using for a particular disease, if the positive result you are going to get, you will go with the new drug over there. I mean the research outcome you will present it in that manner. If it is not having that much efficacy in the of the new drug compared to the standard one, of course you need to go for making some changes in it, so that iterations you will go for it, and you will optimize it, right? So kind of things you will carry out in your research. So this is what the experimentation you are going to perform. Okay, this is a randomized control experiment you are going to perform over there, and you are going to understand whether the research what you are carrying out is going to give the expected outcome or not. Okay, this is one of the method you can follow. Second one is a observational method. This is a naturalistic observation. The researchers are going to observe and record the behavior in its natural setting without intervening. So this method is often used in psychology and anthropology. Observation method is also useful at the other verticals also. Okay, so that I'll explain you. The structured observation is nothing but the observations are made using a predetermined set of criteria or a structured observation schedule you have made for the same, and then you are carrying out the observational method. Okay, so you can see over an example of this naturalistic observation, that an ecologist observes the behavior of a particular bird species in its natural habitat to understand its feeding patterns, mating rituals, and the migration habits. Okay, so you can make the opinions or the comments on or understanding, or you can develop a theory, a study material of these different based for these particular points like feeding patterns, mating rituals, and the migration habits for the bird species, particular bird species. Okay, and this is purely you have made based on the observations whatever you have made. Okay, so this is for this particular type of researches you need to follow this observational method. Then a survey method in many of our research projects. We are following the survey methods wherein we go with some questionnaires or interviews in order to collect the data. From the questionnaires, the researchers collect the data by administering structured questionnaires to the participants. This method is widely used for collecting the quantitative research data. And from the interviews, the researchers ask the questions directly to the participants, as you all know, allowing for more in-depth responses. So interviews can take on structured, semi-structured, or the unstructured formats. Okay, so a market research, especially, we are following the survey methods, right? So market research firm conducts a survey to gather the data on consumer preferences for a new product. This distribute a questionnaire to a representative sample of the target population and analyze the responses so that you will understand whether new product what you have launched in the market is having the better features than its rival company's products. Okay, and if any modifications are expected in the product, also you can get it from the responses of these targeted customers, so that you can make the modifications, changes in your product, and you can relaunch it into the market. So that you can do likewise. For this, for such type of research, you can go for the survey method. Yeah, you can go for the case study method, in which you can follow two single case study method or a multiple case study methods. So in a single case study, a single object is there, and you are going to carry out the entire study around that particular object. Then it is termed as a single case study, which focuses on a single individual entity, providing an in-depth analysis of that case. And in multiple case study, which involves the examination of multiple cases to identify the patterns, the commonalities between them, and the differences what are there in them. So this kind of study, if you have to conduct, then you need to go for a multiple case study. Okay, so generally for the psychologist who conducts a case study on an individual with a rare psychological disorder to gain insights into the causes, symptoms, and potential treatments of the condition, you can follow this particular type of design methods. Then content analysis, the researchers analyze the textual, visual, or audio data to identify the patterns, themes, and the trends. Definitely, this method is commonly used to the media studies and the social sciences. Okay, so what exactly you are going to write, what exactly you are going to watch on YouTube, right? What exactly you want to write on your Insta, Facebook, social media. Okay, so that can be analyzed properly, and accordingly the patterns can be made for a particular human being, right? So for that purpose, you can make use of this particular method, content analysis. Okay, so researchers analyze a large data set of a social media posts to identify the trends in public opinion and sentiment during a political election campaign. We all are familiar with this one, right? So this falls under this content analysis. Then moving ahead, the historical research you can carry out. The historical research, especially the researchers are going to examine the historical documents, the records, artifacts, in order to understand the past events, the trends of those days, and the contexts they are going to understand. So for development of the theories or the studies, study material, the historical research generally we are carrying out. The historian examines the primary sources such as the letters, diaries, and official documents to reconstruct the events and the circumstances which are leading up to a significant historical event. Okay. So likewise, this historical research is helpful for the historians. Yeah. The next research method is a action research. Okay. Now in the action research, you can see that the researchers work collaboratively with the practitioners, and and it's going to address the practical problems or implement the interventions in real world settings. Okay. It means, suppose a school teacher is going to collaborate with the colleagues in order to implement a new teaching method in their classrooms and assess what is the impact of this new teaching method on the students' learning outcomes through continuous reflection and the adjustments you made for the same. Okay, so thus you are going to directly implement the action for the same, and you are going to get the outcome of it is nothing but the action research. Yeah. Um, Next is the ethnographic research. In the ethnographic research, generally this particular research we are carrying out in order to understand a particular type of a tribe. Okay, and in order to understand the entire their living styles or their standards, these things you can get it from this ethnographic research. Okay, So this in this is researchers immerse themselves in a particular cultural or a social group to gain a deep understanding of their behaviors, beliefs, and practices. Okay, in order to understand a particular group, even if you are turning it to engineering, if you are focusing on a particular group of material, and if you wants to get the information of the same, okay, now you need to deal with each one class of it so that you will understand the entire group over there. So from that point of view also, the ethnographic research you can implement over here. Okay, for better understanding, I have given one example over here, that ethnographic research is originated in the field of anthropology, and it often involved an anthropologist living with an isolated tribal community for an extended period of a time in order to understand their culture, social structures, and the daily lives. So for this one, for a longer time period, you have to be there with that community so that you will understand their culture, and these whatever the patterns you want to drawn out about them is possible only when you are going to live with them for a long time. This type of research could sometimes last for years. Today, ethnography is a common approach in various social science fields, and not just in the anthropology. So that is why how we can make use of this one in the engineering also, I have explained you. Then, for example, the ethnographic research, sometimes it is called as the participant observation, has been used to investigate the football fans, call center workers, and the police officers. So, particular community we are going to consider over here, and for that particular community, you are going to develop a project, right? Then you must understand what are the problems to this particular community. You are going to live with them, you are going to understand them, you are going to get the problem, what are the problems they are facing especially, and in order to sort out those problems, the further research process you are carrying out, right? So that way you can implement this ethnographic research and you can get the information. Okay. So next is whether you should use the ethnography in your research. Maybe it is in the field of agricultural or sports. For example, if I'll consider here cricket, then see, if you are a student who wants to use a ethnographic research in your thesis or the dissertation, it's worth asking yourself whether it's the right approach to make use of ethnographic research. Um, that could the information you need be collected in any other way? If it is through the survey or interviews you are getting, then you need not to go for ethnography, right? Then how difficult will it be to gain access to the community you want to study? If it is more easier, you can go with that one. But if it is difficult to access and to live with them for a longer time, it is difficult. Excuse me. Yes. So if it is how difficult it is, that you need to see, and based on that one, you will have to decide whether to use ethnographic method or not. Then how exactly will you conduct your research, and over what time span you are going to implement it? Here, when you are implementing the ethnography, if you are supporting your research, then you should not go with this ethnography. If you have sufficient time, then of course you can go for this ethnography in your research. Okay. Then you need to focus on again what ethical issues might arise. So when you are accessing this particular group of community, okay, then what are the ethical standards you need to follow? That also you need to focus when you are implementing it in your research process. Okay. So if you do decide to do ethnography, it's generally best to choose a relatively small and easily accessible group to ensure that the research is feasible within a limited time frame. Yeah. So after this ethnographic research design, let me talk a little on this cross-sectional and the longitudinal surveys. Okay. Cross-sectional surveys is going to collect the data from a sample of participants at a single point in time. Longitudinal surveys collect the data from the same participants over an extended period, allowing for the study of changes over the time. So I hope you understood what is cross sectional survey and what is longitudinal survey. Okay, so cross sectional survey, that is collecting the data from a sample of participants at a single point in time, while as longitudinal survey is collecting the data from the same participants, but for an extended period of a time. I mean, if I'm going to at interval stages, I'm collecting the data from the same participants. So that is possible in the longitudinal surveys. Okay, so examples are like a public health agency conducts the cross-sectional survey to assess the prevalence of smoking among the different age groups in a specific region during a particular year. So for that particular time period, you are carrying out a single survey over there. That is you are going to carry out in a single point of a time. Okay, it means you are using, the different age groups, and in that different age groups you are going to check the prevalence of the smoking. Okay, it means a cross sectional uh, groups you are going to tackle over there. So this is a cross sectional survey, we can say. And a developmental psychologist who is going to follow a group of children from infancy to through the adolescence to the study their cognitive, emotional, and social development over the time. Means right from the infancy of the children to I mean at different intervals of their ages, you are going to understand what is the cognitive level of the children, what are their emotional level, emotional index, how's their social development is, and that is what you are going to observe, or your survey, you are carrying out a survey about this one. This is a longitudinal survey for a longer time. The same participants you are going to use your for collecting the data, and you are extending that period. Okay, so this particular example is a type of longitudinal survey. So you can use cross sectional or the longitudinal surveys also as a research design methods. You can go for meta analysis. Researchers conduct a quantitative synthesis of data from multiple studies to provide a comprehensive overview of the research finding on a particular topic. So example, you can understand that researchers aggregate and analyze the results of multiple studies on the effectiveness of a specific type of therapy to provide a comprehensive overview of its outcomes. Okay, so that sort of, especially in engineering, we can carry out the review kind of things. You can carry out under this meta-analysis. Then mixed methods research. You can combine, qualitative method is there also, and quantitative method is there. You can make the combination of both these. So combining these qualitative and quantitative research methods to provide a more holistic understanding of the research problem can be done. As sociologists combine surveys and in-depth interviews to study the impact of a community development program on residents' quality of life, that falls in the category of this mixed methods research, wherein you are going to get the qualitative as well as the quantitative data. Yeah. Moving ahead, the next is the grounded theory, a qualitative research methods that aims to develop the theories or explanations which are grounded in the data collected during the research process. You can see over here a sociologist who conducts the interviews with the homeless individuals to develop a theory explaining the factors that contribute to the homelessness and the strategies they use to cope. I mean, because of the homelessness, what are the strategies they are going to use to cope up with this thing. Okay, that you are going to develop a theory about the same through this particular type of the research design method. Okay, so this is typically a qualitative research method, that is grounded theory, to where from with the help of which you are going to serve a particular group of the people. Okay, or a particular group you are going to serve over there. Okay, through this grounded theory. Moving ahead, the simulation and modeling is another research design method. So you all are familiar with this one. Researchers who use the mathematical or the computational models to simulate the real world phenomena and explore various scenarios. In our research proposals, generally we are trying to develop a mathematical model. If new idea we have to devise, then we can go analytically to devise a analytical model, that is mathematical model. Okay, and we are going to simulate also the real world problems, so that you are going to understand through the simulation how exactly the performance of that real world phenomena. Okay, so that you can do through this simulation and modeling method. So there are different tools you can use in to implement this particular research design method, that is simulation and modeling. Like example, you can see over here, the climate scientists use computer models to simulate the effects of various greenhouse gas emission scenarios on global temperatures and the sea levels. Okay, so what are the effects of these various greenhouse gas emissions on the global temperatures and the sea levels can be simulated and modeled to understand in a more thorough manner. Okay, what are the effects and how exactly it affects. Okay, moving ahead. Next is the survey experiments. So you can combine the elements of these surveys, and also you can perform some experiments. So outcome of both these you can combine over there altogether in order to drawn out a particular conclusion out of it. Okay, so this helps the researchers to, or it allows the researchers to manipulate the variables within the survey context. Okay. The next one, that is case control studies and the cohort studies. Okay. So case control studies is nothing but the epidemiological research methods are used to study the causes and the risk factors associated with a certain disease and the health outcomes. Okay. So epidemiologists especially investigate a disease outbreak by comparing a group of individuals who contracted the disease with a group of individuals who did not controls, to identify the potential risk factors over there. Okay, so then this is the cross sequential design, which combines the elements of the cross sectional as well as the longitudinal research to examine both age related changes and the cohort differences in them. Okay, so these total 16 these different research methods are available based on what type of your research is, what exactly you are expected to get. I mean, the outcomes what you are expecting over there, what the objectives you have set. Based on that one, you can implement the research design method to carry out your research. Okay, so selection of specific research design method, it should align with the research objectives, the type of data needed, available resources for your research project, ethical considerations whatever you need to follow, and the overall research approach. Okay, these all things based on which you need to decide which type of research design method you'll implement. Researchers often choose the methods that best suit the nature of their study and the research questions to ensure that they collect the relevant and the valid data. Up to this one, I hope I have made it clear to all of you that what are the different types of the research design, what are the different methods you can follow in order to carry out your research. So I shall move ahead with this, the second part of my presentation, that is a well-planned research design. Sir, I hope I'm audible. Thank you. So 45 minutes are there, no, left? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay. Now I would like to go through this second part of my presentation. That is, what is the well-planned research design you have to follow? Okay. So, whatever research you are carrying out, see, up till we have seen that there should be a well constructed research design, there should be a proper plan you have devised for your research. Of course we will follow those rules. I mean, we will construct it properly, will prepare a very good plan for the same. But how to prepare that? Okay, there are certain steps you need to follow in order to get a systematic research done. Okay, so these steps, as I have highlighted here in this particular slide. So look at this. For the research design carefully, consider which methods are most appropriate and feasible. Okay, and the steps what you are going to follow over here. So here are 6 steps which you need to follow. First, consider your aims and approach of your research. Second step, that you have to choose a type of research design. Then third, identify your population. um, then sampling methods, and fourth is choose your collection methods. Then fifth step is plan your data collection procedures, and the last step is nothing but decide on your data analysis strategies. Yeah. So right from finalizing your aim and approach to data analysis, you need to follow these certain steps in a sequence so that you could able to develop a good research over there. Okay, so moving ahead, yeah, you can see over here, this is a research process onion. Okay, so I have taken it from the scientists who have devised this is Saunders et al. In 2003. Okay, so you can understand, see, uh, this is a research process onion. This is a core part of this research process onion. Okay, so as we know that the core part of a onion is more fruitful or more important one. Okay, so you can see over here, sampling, secondary data, observations, interviews, etc., is nothing but the data collection methods. Okay, you have to go with this data collection methods. You need to choose the data collection method, appropriate data collection method for your research purpose. Then around that, we have a layer of this time horizons, wherein we are going to carry out whether experimental work we are carrying out, whether we are carrying out the surveys like cross sectional surveys we are carrying out, or longitudinal surveys we are carrying out. Then around that, there is another layer of this onion, which is nothing but a research strategies you are going to define. Okay, so we have discussed much about these research strategies. You can understand whether you are going to implement the survey method, you will go for the case study, whether single case study or the multiple case studies, or you will go for the grounded theory of the same other, or you are going for the ethnography. It means a particular group you wants to explore, and you have to spend some time with that particular on that particular group to explore it, to understand it. Okay, so that theory you are going to, or that research strategy you are going to implement. The action research directly, whether you are going to implement it, that these all methods you need to consider in this particular layer. Then moving ahead, you know, the next layer of this particular research process onion is nothing but research approaches. So there are basically the two types of approaches you can see. There is a inductive research approach and the deductive research approach. Inductive research approach, in which you are going for from the specific to generalize. Okay, I mean, you are going to understand something about a specific thing, and based on your study you are going to make an opinion to implement it in a generalized form. Okay, this is called as a inductive research approach. Okay, and deductive research approach is nothing but generalized to general to specific reasoning. Okay, I mean, you have got a generalized statement about a particular group, and then based on that one you are implementing it to a specific one. Okay, so later on you are going to understand whether it is applicable or not, that is the part. But the approach you can keep it likewise in the deductive way. Okay, so inductive or a deductive research approaches you need to make while you are carrying out the research process. Then you can say the outermost layer of this research process onion is nothing but the research philosophy. Okay, now research philosophy consists this positivism, or it is having the you can see interpretivism, or realism too. Okay, so positivism is simply, these all are nothing but the research philosophies. Okay, so positivism is simply nothing but a self-governing or the independent. Okay, so it is you can say a philosophical system which is recognizing only that which can be scientifically verified. Okay, or which is capable of having a logical or some mathematical proof. Okay, that is, we call it as a positivism. Okay, while as the second, you can see over here the interpretivism. Okay, interpretivism is nothing but a qualitative method of research, especially which is used to analyze the data which is related to the human actions in the sociology. Okay, so this these are nothing but the research philosophies. So you can see these research process onion is having these all different the elements there in these different layers of it. Okay, now I shall go with this um, the steps which we have seen in the previous slide. Okay, so before going to that those steps, I would like to highlight here that what exactly or how exactly you will understand that you have made a good research plan. Okay, so if your research plan is going to have these characteristics in it, you can say that it is a good research plan. So what are those characteristics? First of all, neutrality. Yeah, what do you mean by the neutrality? From the goal of the research to the techniques for collecting the data, means for all the steps, you can say it's important that there are no prejudices. Okay, it means there should not be a preconceived notion. Please don't make the pre-assumptions. Okay, so these prejudices should not be there during these steps. Okay, so the research plan can include the opinions about the subject matter from the different stakeholders viewpoints that reflect the actual situation. Okay, so here you can see when you don't have such preconceived notions about the different theories, then you can get the or a particular object or a particular kind of a situation, then you can get the collect the data from the different stakeholders, and then you can analyze the opinions of all those stakeholders, and you can make your judgment based on that one. Okay, if you are making your own judgment at the beginning and then you are collecting the data, then that is not having a neutrality. Okay, so at the beginning you must have the neutrality in carrying out your research process. This is the one characteristic of a good research plan. Second one is the reliability. Yes, of course, whatever you are going to get must be reliable. Okay, so it's important that your research plan standardize the methods of sampling, testing, and analyzing data. This ensures that the data you collect and present is reliable and is free from the research errors and biases, especially. So you have not done the biased research, you don't have the errors because you have followed the standardized methods for sampling purpose, for testing purpose, for analyzing purpose. So whatever the data you have collected is a standard one. Whatever the outcomes you have, the conclusions you have made out of it are the standard, are going to add some knowledge to that particular domain. So your research is a reliable one. Okay, so good research plan is that it must have a characteristics of the reliability. Then third one is the validity. Yes, research is valid when its results among the study participants reflect the true nature of individuals outside the study. Okay, it means it ensure that your research is valid. It's crucial to scrutinize the different test subjects and choose the right measuring tools that can help you to gauge the results according to real life scenarios. Okay, so that validity also is another characteristics of the good research plan. And the next one is the generality. Okay, so generality is a good research plan, you can see, ensures that you can apply you can apply the outcome of the research to the general population outside of a restricted sample. So that is what I said. Okay, you have got the you have drawn out an outcome from a particular sample, but that outcome is also applicable. So you have made it in such a standardized way that that outcome is applicable to the rest of population also. It is nothing but a generality. Okay, and your research plan should be designed in such a way that you have followed the standard methods, so that you will it will have a generality over there. So this neutrality, reliability, validity, and generality all are nothing but the characteristics of a good research plan. Yeah. Yes, so we shall come back to the different steps which we are following here in the research design and planning process. Okay, so before you can start designing your research, you should already have a clear idea of the research question you want to investigate. It means, suppose the research question is, here I have taken one of the case study which I'm going to explain you at the end of this presentation. The research question is that how can you replace a human bone with the artificial bone? Okay, so now as we all know that generally for the human bone joints, we need to go with the a joint part of the bone. Okay, so how can you replace that with the help of artificial one? If suppose this is a research question in your mind, then you have to devise it in a proper manner. Okay, so what exactly you want to develop, whether you want to develop a human bone, you want to develop a human bone pin, okay, or whether you want to only suggest a material for that particular application. Okay, so these things you need to devise appropriately. Okay, so this is nothing but your aim and approach. So what is your aim? Whether to decide the material, whether to develop a pin for it, or whether to develop an entire human bone over there, and whether you are going to see that how the biocompatibility of the same will takes place, how the tissues will get generated on it. So all these things you are going to study, or you are going to investigate over there. So these all things you need to decide at the beginning, what will be your aim and what will be your approach. Okay, so there are many different ways you could go about answering this question. Your research design choices should be driven by your aims and priorities, which start by thinking carefully about what you want to achieve. Okay, so the first choice you need to make is whether you will take a qualitative or a quantitative approach. Okay, so as I said that qualitative and quantitative approach, the quantitative approach is related to the number. Okay, so generally in the numbers we are going to concluding the things over here. Okay, so compared to that, the qualitative quantitative approach is of course in engineering is more useful. Okay, so we have to follow this qualitative or the quantitative approach. Yeah, so what is qualitative approach and what is quantitative approach? You can see that qualitative approach is to understand the subjective experiences, beliefs, and concepts. Okay, it gives you to gain in-depth knowledge of a specific context or a culture, and it explores the under-researched problems and generate the new ideas. Okay, so in order to get these qualitative approach is useful to you. Okay, but the quantitative approach, in contrast to that, you can understand. See, the quantitative approach is to measure the different types of variables and describe the frequencies, averages, and the correlations. It helps to test the hypothesis about relationships between the variables, and also it tests the effectiveness of a new treatment program or the product for this one we are using. Quantitative approach is also a one type of data gathering instrument. Okay, so and most of the, as I said, that in the engineering research we are following this quantitative approach to understand the things or the principles in more thorough manner, because we are expecting the scientific base for everything, right? So for that reason, if we are comparing it with on the basis of quantitative manner, okay, then that is more useful to us. Okay, so this is a qualitative or the quantitative approach you can follow. Okay, Generally, the qualitative research designs, it's tend to be more flexible and inductive. Okay, so as I explain you little about what is inductive. Okay, and with one of the example also I'm going to explain you over here this, what is inductive. Qualitative research design is inductive means what, that allow you to adjust your approach based on what you find throughout the research process. Okay, so inductive reasoning means specific to general reasoning. Okay, it means, suppose I am going to develop the nano composite, and as we all know that for any composite material, the strength of the composite material is very good compared to conventional one. Okay, so I can say that the nanocomposite A and nanocomposite B are going to exhibit a very good strength. Okay, so I can make the statement that observed samples of nanocomposite exhibit very good strength. What are those A and B, which I have observed? And the statement I'll make like this, that observed samples of nanocomposites exhibit very good strength. Okay, so conclusion I can make that all nanocomposite exhibit very good strength. This is what the specific to general reasoning. Okay, I have made the observations about some specific nanocomposites over here, and I am making a generalized statement over here that all nanocomposite exhibits a very good strength. So this is a qualitative research design. Okay, this is a qualitative research design, and this is, we call it as a inductive one. From specific to generalized reasoning, we are going for it. Okay, or you can say that if you want to generate the new ideas for online teaching strategies, a qualitative approach would make the most sense. Okay, so if you want to generate the new ideas for online teaching, because this qualitative approach helps you to understand what are the exact problems or the struggles of the both teachers and the students with these remote classes. Okay, so through the qualitative research only you can understand. I mean, carrying out their interviews or surveys, you will collect the information, and based on that one you will understand what are their problems and the struggles, and for that you need to implement the qualitative research design. Now, quantitative research design tend to be more fixed and deductive one. Qualitative research is little flexible one, but quantitative research design is fixed one. You cannot deal with the numbers. Okay, so this particular type of a research design is a fixed one and deductive one. Deductive approach we have. Okay, with the variables and hypothesis which clearly defined in advance of data collection. Now, what deductive is exactly opposite to the inductive one, in which the reasoning is from general to specific one. Okay, it means all metals exist are either ferrous or non-ferrous based. Okay, so this is general statement is there, and that is null hypothesis, because you cannot you are not going to reject it, so does not get rejected. That is okay. So example for the quantitative research is, if you want to test the effectiveness of an online teaching method, a quantitative approach is most suitable. Sorry. Now, in the previous slide, we have seen that for the qualitative research, to understand the problems in the remote classes, you need to go for the qualitative approach. But if you want to know the effectiveness of online teaching method, you need to go for the quantitative research, because it gives you the information in numbers. Okay, and that is helpful for you to compare. Okay, so you can use this type of research to measure the learning outcomes like grades and test scores. Okay, I mean, how much grades the students have scored, how much the marks the students have scored, uh, because of that online teaching method, so that you can analyze over here. Okay, and that is in numbers you are going to analyze. So this is a quantitative research you can carry out likewise. Moving ahead, the next step is choose the type of the research design. There are different types of quantitative research designs are four mainly. The types are there: experimental, quasi-experimental design, descriptive, and correlational. These four design types are there. Experimental and quasi-experimental design allow us to test the cause and effect relationship, while as descriptive and correlational designs allow us to measure the variables and describe the relationship between them. Okay, so we'll go with the experimental and quasi-experimental designs. Experimental design is helpful to us to test the causal relationship. okay, which involves manipulating an independent variable and measuring its effect on a dependent variable. So that we have discussed in uh, when we were talking about the types of the research design, right? In the experimental, I have discussed with the example that if suppose the advertisement, if I'm going to control, then sale of the product will get affected accordingly. Okay, so that way you can check the causal relationship between these two variables. So subjects are randomly assigned to the groups. Usually this is conducted in a controlled environment, experimental. Okay, so that is in a lab we can conduct in a controlled environment. Quasi experimental design is used to test the causal relationship again, but it is similar to the experimental design, but without random assignment. We are not going to make the random assignment over here, and that is psychotherapist example I have discussed with you about this quasi experimental design. Okay, so often it involves comparing the outcomes of a pre-existing groups. This often conducted in a natural environment, that is higher ecology validity is expected for these quasi experimental designs. The next one is the correlation and the descriptive. Okay, so correlation again it gives to test whether how strongly the variables are related with the other. Okay, sorry. Then variables are measured without influencing them in the correlation quantitative method. Then descriptive one, which is used to describe the characteristics, averages, or a certain trends of the data. Then variables are measured without influencing them. Okay, so that this is in the descriptive. So with descriptive and the correlational designs, you can get a clear picture of the characteristics, trends, and the relationships as they exist in the real world. However, you can't draw the conclusions about cause and effect. In the descriptive and correlation, as like in the experimental and quasi-experimental, you cannot draw out the conclusions about cause and effect. Okay, because correlation doesn't imply any causation. Okay, it means the correlation is like, see, if electrorheological fluid, I hope you are aware of it. Electrorheological fluid is the fluid whose viscosity is going to change upon application of some external field, that is electric field. Okay, so for the ER fluid, when we are preparing the ER fluid, we are we have to focus two important properties. Other properties also are there, but two major properties we are considering over here is nothing but the sedimentation of that fluid and the ER effect. Okay, ER effect is nothing but the yield strength of that fluid. Okay, so both these are the dependent variables. These properties are depend on some other parameters. Okay, so these are the dependent variables, and this depends on the particle size. Okay, so when you are synthesizing the fluid, you are going to take a non-conducting liquid, and in that one the solid particles you are going to add over there. So solid particles of what size you are adding, based on that one, the sedimentation rate what will be of that fluid and how much ER effect you will get out of it, that depends. Okay, so hence both these variables are correlated with the sedimentation and the ER effect. Okay, however they are not changing due to one another. I mean, sedimentation is going to change because of particle size. ER effect is also going to change because of particle size. If particle size is too low, I mean to the nanoscale, the ER effect will be very high and there will be very low sedimentation. Okay, if the particle size is very high, there will be high sedimentation and very low ER effect will be there. Means likewise, these two dependent variables are depending on this particular variable, but there is no as such relation between the sedimentation and ER effect. Okay, I mean because of the high sedimentation, the low ER effect will be there. No, it is not like that. Okay, so this is you can say that correlational one, which doesn't imply the causation over there. So these variables are not correlated. And another issue with the correlational is that there is a directionality problem. I mean, consider this example of vitamin D levels are correlated with the depression. Okay, but it's not clear whether low vitamin D causes the depression, or whether depression causes the reduced vitamin D intake. Okay, so this is again a directionality problem, because of which which variable is going to hampered. Okay, so this is what a correlational design. So that is why we can say that it is not going to imply the causation. Experiments are the strongest way to test the cause and effect relationship without the risk of other variables influencing the results. In an experimental design, by keeping other parameters controlled, one can check an effect of particle size on the ER effect. So I can uh, mm, control all other particles, and I can check only what is the effect of the particle size on the ER effect. That is the yield strength of the ER fluid, and that is I can find out by carrying out some sort of experiment over here. Then qualitative research design. There are again these four different types of qualitative research designs are there: case study and ethnography, grounded theory, and phenomenology. Case study and ethnography allows you to test the cause and effect relationship, while as grounded theory and phenomenology designs allow you to measure the variables and describe the relationships between them. So case study designs, which are detailed study of the specific subjects like place, event, organization. The data can be collected using a variety of sources and methods. Focuses on gaining a holistic understanding of the case. Then ethnography design, I have already explained to you this detailed study of a culture or specific community or a group. Data is collected by extended immersion and close observation. Focuses on describing and interpreting beliefs, conventions, social dynamics, etc. Then grounded theory is aims to develop a theory inductively by systematically analyzing the qualitative data. Phenomenology is aims to understand a phenomena or an event by describing the participants' lived experiences. Okay, so these are the qualitative type of the research methods. Then next step over here is step 3, which identify the population and the sampling data. So how you are going to decide the population and how you are going to implement appropriate sampling method to it, that you are going to decide in the third stage. Okay, so defining the population. A population can be made up of anything you want to study, whether plants, animals, organizations, texts, countries, etc. So in the social sciences, it most often refers to a group of people. Okay, and it is of a larger size. Population is nothing but of a larger size. Okay, and sample is nothing but a small out of it you are going to choose. Right. So this is population and the sample. So, for example, will you focus on a people from a specific demographic, a region, or a background? Are you interested in a people with a certain job or a medical condition or a users of a particular product? If you want to develop a cricket ball throwing machine, you need to identify the academies, the cricket academies, who are providing the coaching to the cricketers, and such academies are going to become a group for you, which you need to target over there. Okay, so that becomes a population for you. So likewise it is. So the more precisely you define your population, the easier it will be to gather a representative sample. Population example are like if you are studying the effectiveness of a materials for an artificial bone, as I mentioned that example, then to replace the human bone, then it would be very difficult to get a sample that's representative of all the material families. Okay, if I'm going to consider all the material families, more than thousand of material families are available there. Okay, so if you are choosing all those, then it is quite difficult for you to identify the most appropriate one. Okay, so to make the research more manageable and to draw more precise conclusions, you could focus on a narrower population. For example, select the composite material containing the hydroxyapatite as the matrix constituent. It means you need to go a composite material, and that one you need to keep the major alloying material is a hydroxyapatite, which is the most appropriate material for the bone. Okay, so likewise, if you are narrowing your research, and then it becomes for you that maybe 20 or 30 materials are available, and you can easily carry out the research for them, and you can identify the best suitable one. So likewise, you need to choose the population for your research. Sampling methods. To select a sample, there are two main approaches. Probability sampling is there and non-probability sampling is there. The sampling method you use affects how confidently you can generalize your results to the population as a whole. In non-probability sampling, each unit in your target population does not have an equal chance of being included. Here you can form your sample using other considerations such as convenience or a particular characteristics. So, and whereas in probability sampling, each unit in your target population must have an equal chance of selection. So, this is difference between probability and non-probability sampling. Okay. So, probability sampling is the sample selected using random methods. Non-probability sample is selected in a non-random way. Probability sampling mainly used to quantitative research. Non-probability sampling is used to both qualitative and quantitative research. Probability sampling allows you to make strong statistical inferences about the population, whereas non-probability sampling is easier to achieve but more risk of research bias. Why it is more risk of research bias in the non-probability sampling? Because we are going to select the samples on a non-random basis. Okay, so here mainly we are going to select through convenience. Okay, so it may becomes a research biased one. Okay, if you are not appropriately select the an element or entity, then by convenience, if you are selecting, then it is non-random, and it definitely it may becomes biased one. Okay, so simple random sampling, you can see the gathers a random selection from the entire population where each unit has an equal chance of selection. This is the most common way to select a random sample. Like example is election poll, or stratified sampling. You can go for it, wherein you can collect a random selection of a sample from within the certain strata or subgroups within the population. Each subgroup is separated from the others on the basis of a common characteristic such as a gender, race, or religion. Based on that one, each subgroup is different. So example is dividing a student population by discipline, measures like mechanical engineering, computer science engineering, civil engineering, etc. You are going to make the subgroups of the same. Is nothing but a stratified sampling. Okay. Then systematic sampling, which draws a random sample from the target population by selecting the units at a regular intervals starting from a random points. And this is applicable generally for the records of any agency's clients, enrollment lists of university students, or a company's employment records. It means, suppose you have chosen the 51 51 number, then in between 101 to 202 you have to select the 151, then 251, 351. Likewise, you are going to, in each 100, you are going to select uh, sample over there. Okay, this is a systematic sampling. Then cluster sampling is there. You have to divide the entire population into the some groups to whom we can call as cluster, and from the clusters the samples we are going to collect. From each cluster we are going to collect the sample. Likewise, these what we have already discussed are the probability samples, and now we are discussing about the non-probability samples. And as I said that non-probability samples are going to select the samples in a non-random manner. Okay, so convincing sampling is one type, which is called as also accidental samples. It means because of participants can be selected from the sample simply because they happen to be nearby when the researchers is conducting the data collection. Okay, so this is an accidental sample. Then self, so you, if it is an accidental sample, it may result as a biased one. Okay, so this is what the problem you can see with the non-probability sampling. Then self-selection sampling, that is also called as a volunteer sampling, relies on participants who voluntarily agree to be part of your research. Generally, for the companies we are getting, the feedback we have to give. That is a self-selection sampling. If you are interested, then only you are giving it. Okay, so that is a self-selection sampling. Then snowball sampling, this particular type of sampling is about socially marginalized groups such as drug addicts, homeless people, often uses snowball sampling. Okay, then Google, Facebook, etc. are using this snowball sampling. Okay, to understand a particular type of a group. Okay. Then moving ahead, the next step is the choose data collection methods. There are different data collection methods available. Okay, which are directly measuring variables and gathering the information. You can choose just one data collection method, or you can use the several methods also in the same study. Now, whether you have to decide first of all whether you want to collect the primary data or secondary data. I hope you are familiar with that one. Primary data is nothing but the data which you directly are going to collect it. Secondary data is someone has already presented it, and from that resource you are going to collect that data is a secondary data. Okay, so to get this data, you can follow the survey methods, observation methods, media and communication, psychology, education, physical sciences. These all things we have already discussed with you. Okay, so these are different data collection methods. Survey methods, you can follow the questionnaires and interview for them, especially in supply chain management. If suppose your research is in supply chain management, to study the sustainability practice implementation in industry, okay, whether it may be a social, economic, and with the environment dimensions, okay, you need to go with this surveys, questionnaires, to reduce this pollution initiatives, or the employee awareness, to make the employee awareness tools, okay, you require to follow this survey method. So wherein you are going to prepare the questionnaires, you are going to perform some interviews over there, okay, to collect that information, okay. So questionnaires is more common in quantitative research, maybe distributed online by phone, by mail, or in person, usually offer closed questions with limited options. Interviews are more common in a qualitative research conducted by researchers in person, by phone, or online, usually allow the participants to answer in their own words, okay. So you are well familiar with this one. Then observational methods you can implement to collect the data, which may be conducted in a real time, taking notes as you observe, or you might make audio visual recordings for later analysis. They can be qualitative or quantitative. Quantitative, systematically counting or measuring and categorizing the criteria determined in advance, while as qualitative, taking the detailed notes and writing rich descriptions. And these all relevant observations can be recorded in a qualitative collection method. Then other data collection methods are like media and communication, psychology, education, physical sciences. Media and communication is collecting a sample of text, speeches, articles, or a social media post for data on cultural norms and narratives. While a psychology using technologies like neuroimaging or eye tracking or computer-based tasks to collect the data on things like attention, emotional response, how it is, or a reaction time, to measure the reaction time. This particular type of method you can use. Then education, using these tests or assignments to collect the data on knowledge and skills, you can implement it. Physical sciences, like using scientific instruments to collect the data on things like weight, blood pressure, or chemical composition, you can use this collection method. Moving ahead, the step 5, you have to further plan data collection procedures. Okay, so planning a systematic procedures is especially important research, where you need to precisely define your variables and ensure your measurements are high in reliability and validity. Okay, so as I said, number you cannot deal with them, so reliability and validity is very important in the quantitative research design. Okay, so operationalization means turning the fuzzy ideas into the measurable indicators. Means suppose you have to find out the satisfaction index, or you have to know the anxiety or the competency level of the candidate. Then you have to design your experiment in such a way that such fuzzy ideas you can make them measurable one. Okay, you can decide the measurable indicators for them, right? So that is nothing but operationalization. Reliability and the validity is, I have already explained to you as a characteristics of this research design, so I'll go ahead. um, then sampling procedures, as well as choosing an appropriate sampling method, you need a concrete plan for how you will actually contact and recruit your selected sample. That means making decisions about things like how many participants do you need for an adequate sample size, what inclusion and exclusion criteria will you use to identify eligible participants, how will you contact your sample, by mail, online, by phone, or in person. If you are using a probability sampling method, it's important that everyone who is randomly selected actually participates in the study. How will you ensure a high response rate? If you are using a non-probability sampling method, how will you avoid the research bias and ensure the representative sample? Then data management, it's also important to create a data management plan for organizing and storing your data. Will you need a transcript interviews or perform data entry for observations? You should anonymize and safeguard any sensitive data and make sure that it's backup regularly. Okay, so identifying data you can remove from the same. Then keeping your data well organized will save time, and when it comes to analyzing it, you can get it easily. So it can also help other researchers validate and add to your findings also with the data appropriate data management. And the last step over here is decide on data analysis strategies. Um, in this qualitative data analysis you are carrying out in quantitative data analysis you are carrying out. In quantitative research, you will most likely use some form of a statistical analysis. With statistics, you can summarize your sample data, make estimates, and test hypotheses. Using descriptive statistics, you can summarize your sample data is in terms of the distribution of the data, that is the frequency of each score on a test, or the central tendency of the data, the mean to describe the average score, the variability of the data, that is the standard deviation to describe how spread out the scores are. And in the qualitative data analysis, in this research, your data will usually be very dense with information and ideas. So instead of summing it up in numbers, you'll need to comb through the data in detail and interpret what exactly the meanings out of it, identify the patterns, and extract the parts that are most relevant to your research questions. Okay. So analyzing the quantitative data or the qualitative data, you need to carry out in this way. So these are all different 6 steps in order you need to follow in order to develop your constructive research plan, okay, or research design, right? You can see over here. So second part I have covered over here of this plan, how you exactly have to follow to develop a research design. I would like to go through one of the case study over here, that is research design and planning in bioengineering is one of the research project we have carried out. You can see over here the title for the same is uh, synthesis and characterization of artificial human being develop bone pin development using nanocomposites. So that is what example also I discussed with you. So we have carried out this synthesis of the material and also characterization of that. Now, while developing this research proposal, we carried out the research survey and understood the literature gap over here, that mostly the researchers mentioned the materials, that is titanium alloy, stainless steel alloys, and the ceramics. But the main problem with this material is they are stiffer than bone tissues, may lead to mechanical mismatch problems like stress shielding between the implant and the adjacent bone tissues. So this is what a major problem we are going to face with the conventional material which we are going to use for the replacement of the bone. Okay, so the materials, that is titanium alloys and zinc alloys, which produces toxic cells when contact with the blood, and that is use of biocomposite is needed over here. Okay, this is a very important thing. See, generally the metal alloys what we are going to use over here for the prosthesis purpose, they are producing the cancerous tissues after certain time periods, maybe after 10 years or 15 years. But that is definitely going to harm, human being life. So this is a major constraint to make use of these particular materials. Hence, we should devise a material which has a very good biocompatibility and is not going to produce this kind of toxic cells over there. Okay, so this was the main challenge, and nobody has worked on it. This is what a literature gap we identified, and to breach this particular gap, we have carried out the further research. So problem statement we devised is, in the field of health science, for repair, replacement, and regeneration of bones, the materials used presently are steels and other alloys. But the main problem encountered is these materials produce toxic cells and compounds which are harmful and having number of disadvantages during repair and replacement work. So in order to overcome these problems, there is need to develop a material with the proper mechanical properties without affecting biocompatibility. Okay. So the most important property here in this particular case is nothing but a biocompatibility. Okay. Because the material what you are going to use must be biocompatible with the other things of your body part. Okay. So focusing this problem statement, we devise a few objectives over here. So you can see over here, these are the objectives we devised. The first one is to identify and select the nanocomposite which exhibits the biocompatible properties. Second, to develop the artificial bone pin by using proposed nanocomposite material using suitable synthesis process. Third is to investigate experimentally the artificial bone pin on pin on disc machine to determine the tribological behavior. So for the bone, the strength of the bone and tribological behavior of the bone is very important one, along with the biocompatibility. Okay, so objectives are made accordingly. Then to determine the mechanical and physical properties of the proposed artificial bone pin using experimental and computational techniques. And the last one is to validate this mechanical, physical, and tribological properties and the biocompatibility of the artificial bone with the human bone. So that gives you the actual validity of your research outcome. Okay, so with that, the fifth objective we developed. Then we carried out the steps in which we are carrying out this proposed work: literature survey, development of bone pin using nanocomposite. Then what are the characterization of the artificial bone pin we are will carry out, that biocompatibility, tribological property, mechanical property, physical property likewise. Then computational characterization, how we are going to develop that step we have included. And then we end up with the validation and report writing on the outcomes. Okay, so likewise, these different steps we made to complete this research, and this is what Gantt chart you are well aware of it. All the steps what we are carrying out within a stipulated time period, we are going to complete it. So time frame is most important one. Within a year we have to finish it. So all the activities, how we are going to perform those, that we need to plan. Okay, so that is what we have made here in this particular chart. Okay, then moving ahead, another one case study I would like to discuss with you. Sir, may I take 5 minutes more?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. um, so this is another case study. You can see over here the title of the study is Some Theoretical and Experimental Studies on Design Development and Response Analysis of a Large Scale Orifice Type Damper using a High Yield Smart Fluid for Artillery Gun Recoil Application. Okay, so what exactly this case is, I would like to explain you. See over here in the introduction part of it. Okay, so let me show you this. This is what a artillery gun, and upon shooting a bomb through this barrel, the barrel comes back. Okay, and it is hitting the entire, this you can say, the breech mechanism of the gun. Okay, and we have to devise a recoil system such that this barrel will not travel much and it not impact much to this particular mechanism. Okay, and within a short time period itself, the barrel will go back and where it will be ready for the next shooting. Okay, so for that purpose you need to devise a recoil system of a high capacity, and the, you can say, the space availability is very low. So with the conventional fluids it is quite difficult. Okay, so as a recoil system we are going to use the spring and absorber system, and in the absorber, if you are going to use a conventional fluid, then absorber fluid, then that is of no use. Okay, so we need to devise another different type of fluid over here, and that is ER fluid we devised. That is what I explained to you. ER fluid is nothing but an electrorheological fluid. Okay, the fluid whose rheology, that is viscosity, is going to change upon application of some external electric field. Okay, so if we are using that fluid in the shock absorber, then it is easy for you to stop the barrel within a less distance and a less time period, and you can send it back to the next firing. Okay, so this was the research we were planning to carry out. Now here we carried out a substantial literature survey. Then we come up with some literature gap in it, and based on that literature gap, we formulated the research objectives. Okay, so you can see over here the research objectives are like to study that in detail an artillery gun recoil system, smart fluid dampers and high yield stress smart fluids, to synthesize and characterize smart fluids suitable for a large scale gun recoil application, to design and develop a large scale smart fluid damper with spring suitable for 155 Howitzer gun recoil system, to design and develop an experimental model of artillery gun recoil system, to evaluate the proposed artillery gun recoil system experimentally, to study and develop the theoretical model of smart fluid flow through the annular gap of the damper, to simulate proposed smart fluid damper performance and smart recoil system, and to validate the computational and experimental results based on the different performance parameters. So here the smart fluid damper, we call it as a smart fluid because electric fluid we have used in it, and electric fluid is a smart fluid, okay, which is going to change its own characteristics, okay. So we call it as a smart fluid damper over there. Okay, so these research objectives are almost 8 objectives we need to devise in order to cover the entire work over here. And you can see the methodology you can follow or you can devise for this research work is like, you can go with the literature survey, then you can develop the recoil system, you need to check you need to go for the dynamics of recoil system, how to synthesize and characterize the ER fluid, then you will have to design ER damper, fabricate that, then you have to develop the assembly of that ER damper, then you are going for the performance analysis of that recoil, this damper, ER damper in the recoil system. For that you have two approaches, computational approach and experimental approach. In experimental approach you have to go for developing the scaled model, then selection of a suitable experimental setup for the laboratory environment, because on actual Howitzer we cannot uh, employ this one and can get the readings over there. So you need to go to carry out this experimentation at the laboratory environment, so you need to develop a scaled model over there. Then performance analysis in terms of the recoil length and recoil time. uh, Simultaneously the computational approach you can implement, and you can carry out the analytical method in CFD, computational fluid dynamics, development of the simulink model, performance analysis of this model, okay, in terms of the different things as ER effect is there, sediment is there, likewise. Then comparing these results which you have got from the computational approach and from the experimental approach, that you will carry out. And from the comparison you will understand the what is the difference you are going to get between these. Okay, so maximum, as we all know that 10% the variation is allowed, right? Then summary and the conclusion of the same you have to make. So this is what the methodology for the research, entire research work you need to carry out. So this helps you to track properly all the activities. So every activity I can conduct with the time frame, and I can complete it within stipulated time period itself. Okay. What are the expected outcomes of this proposed research, like synthesis and characterization of ER fluid, design and analysis of the ER damper, simulation study of that damper, and then performance evaluation of ER damper based on the recall system by experimental method. So outcome of this study definitely is going to become a knowledge to the domain of this Howitzer system. Okay, so these are a few glimpses wherein you'll understand that how the ER fluid we have developed. Then these are samples, we have tested them, and we have got the very good results of it. So damper, this is what we have designed, and after testing this design we have got these different results. So this is means after completing the research, this particular part is there. Okay, so what exactly I wanted to show you through this one, that how the objectives we have to devise and how we have to go for forming the methodology for the same. Okay, so these are the two case studies we have discussed over here. um, and this third part is also of the presentation is over from my side. So thank you, and I'm coming to the last part of it, that is question and answer. If you have any doubts, any queries, please ask.
Is there any question from audience? Please ask. Sir, there is a question in chat box.
Yeah, I need to check that. Just a moment.
Yes, sir. Yes. While designing a experiment, what are the basic parameters considered?
While designing the experiment, what are the?
Basic parameters considered.
Yeah, it depends on what type of experiment you are conducting. The variables, first of all, is very important that you have to understand the relationship between the variables. Okay, so first of all, you will have to decide the variables, and you will have to check the causal relationship, means cause and effect relationship of the same. I mean, as I explained to you one example that particle size, I want to check the effect of particle size on the sedimentation of the fluid, and the effect of the particle size on the AR effect also. It means the yield strength of that fluid also. Then accordingly, I need to devise these three variables, and I need to check the effect of this variable, single variable, on these two dependent variables. Okay, so likewise this I can consider.
Okay. Is there any question?
Shall I stop sharing, ma'am?
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you very much, sir, for giving your valuable time to this FDP session. And your session will definitely help us for planning of research work also. And you have explained different case studies with us, understanding the concept and give the clarification about how the design research design methods used and how it works. So thank you once again on behalf of PVPIT Gurgaon. I extend a really hearty vote of thanks to our expert, Dr. S.R. Patil sir, who spared the time with us from his busiest schedule. So thank you once again.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I express my thanks to your PUPIT management, organizers of your faculty development program, also for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, one and
Okay.
all.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. Shall I exit?